Welcome to Reel Filmmaking. My name is Corey, and today we are talking creative process in regards to vlogging. So a little bit of context for this episode. In my last episode, I actually shared that in August and September, I got to tour with a band full-time, and I vlogged the tour. And so you can check out my episode about that, just things I learned about vlogging, using the M50, the whole thing. But I actually got a couple comments on that video asking a little bit more about delving into the creative process behind vlogging. So that's what this video is going to be. A little bit of behind the scenes, behind the curtain of how I was thinking and putting together these vlogs. So this isn't really specific to the M50, but if you're somebody who is vlogging or you're trying to figure out like how to put a vlog together or what's the best way, hopefully this video will kind of give you some of those macro level ideas you need to focus on. Also, I'm doing a little bit of a different setup, by the way, as you can notice here. I don't know, just trying a different feel. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? You like my other setup? Tell me your thoughts. The biggest thing I would say in regards to the creative process behind vlogging is having a story to tell. Some people will hear this and be like, oh, but I don't have a compelling, interesting story. No, that's not true. You do. You have a very interesting, compelling story. Everyone has a story to tell, and it can be a small story of like, I'm just doing something in my neighborhood, to a huge story like I'm, flying across the world to do this monumental race or whatever. It's like both of those things are stories, and they both can be communicated in a really engaging, dramatic, captivating way, and they can also be communicated in a very poor, bland way. And once you know what that story is, then you can kind of craft the pieces around it to make it engaging, to make it interesting, captivating, like I was saying. The next big thing you want to figure out is kind of what is the story within that story. And so what do I mean by that? Like I said, you can be flying across the country or across the world to go do this amazing thing, and that is a story in and of itself. But there's another story happening of like you taking the trip and experiencing that. So like, how do you communicate that story? How does that interweave to the main storyline, if you will? So a good example of this in the vlogs that I just did recently, each vlog essentially tells the story of a band driving someplace, setting up, playing a concert, talking to people, tearing it all down, driving home. That's kind of like the main storyline. But within each of those, I always wanted to put another story, which was kind of the real focus of what was happening in the vlog. So these things would always happen. The band would always play. We would always, talk to people, tear the equipment down, all that stuff. But there was something bigger happening. So an example of one of the vlogs, I can link it down in the description. The story that I wanted to tell was, what does it all take to make a concert happen? A lot of people just show up at a concert and be like, oh, a band's playing, but most people don't realize, a lot of the bands, the smaller working bands, before you like really hit it big and have a whole crew and stuff, there's a lot of pieces that you put together yourself to make the show happen. So in the vlog, I shared us like driving to the concert venue, setting stuff up, but I shot it in a purposeful way where I was trying to tell the story of like, what is each piece that is needed to make the show happen. So whether it's like, making sure I got a shot of the sound tech explaining like, hey, what are you doing here? Or us setting up the lights, or us doing sound check, or like all these different pieces that help to tell the story within the story. So that is a really big thing. I think it's the most important thing. Identify what is your story, like the things happening in your vlog. Like, I'm going from point A to B. I need to, it's like I need to buy a carton of milk because I need it to do this thing. But what is the story behind that? Like, why am I going to buy this carton of milk? Like, what am I making, or what's going on in my day emotionally where this is a significant thing that I felt to put on camera? The next thing creatively, like once you identify that, is how do you keep the vlog interesting? Now, this can kind of be subjective. There's a lot of different ways, but in the course of my vlogging, I tried to vary up the types of shots and the types of things I was doing to keep interest for the viewer, whether that be through something like the frame rate, slow motion, or the composition, how you frame things like eye level, above eye level, all that stuff. Keep all those things in mind, and that's going to help vary up your shots and like it won't make every vlog feel the same. Other ideas of how you can bring dynamic energy to your vlogs. Quick cuts are a way of doing that. So I had a couple intro sequences in one vlog where I literally just was like cut, 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 and I used the audio to kind of propel that and the quick motion. And that can be a really interesting way to like hook people in a sequence. It's a great way to show passing of time. Speaking of the passing of time, another way that I have found to show the passage of time in vlogging is to use time lapses. This works really well if you need to transition from one scene to another. So time lapses were really key, I know, for me when I was doing this vlog, because there's a lot of times it's like, well, I've already showed this in another vlog, so I don't need to like show the whole thing again. So I'm just going to use a time lapse and people will understand what's going on. So time lapses are huge in transition pieces. Another major thing you want to think about as you're structuring your vlog is like how you are going to basically move from one scene to the next scene. You want to think about, as I'm shooting this, like how do I move from this area or this setup that I'm talking about? How do I move from this setup to the next setup? So for me, I'd always be kind of thinking like, what are shots that I could use to move me into the next place? You always need some connective tissue. If I shoot a whole bunch of scenes in the area that we're going to be playing the concert, whatever, you see the audience, you see the band playing, but then I need to move us into someplace else. I need to make sure I have a shot of us like walking out to the van, carrying some of the gear out, doing all of this before all of a sudden we appear someplace else. It's like when you watch a film and sometimes you see sequences where characters are talking and then they're like walking through a hallway or something, and then they end up in the room where like the action is going to happen. You saw the transition. Sometimes you have to figure out like, do I need a transition between this spot and this spot? Does it make sense in the flow of the story I'm telling? Most of the time it does. Sometimes it doesn't, because maybe it could be like all of the stuff at that, event wrapped up, it's done, and you can just do a hard cut to something new. Other things that can be cool, just, I'm talking about different elements that you can put in your vlog just to spice it up. In-camera transitions, if you can do those where you use part of the environment to transition into something else, that can be great. There's some magic that can be done in post. Like I had some transitions where it's like, I might tilt the camera up and then I'll tilt it down and I'm in a different location. That's cool. You can use objects passing through the frame to transition. You can use natural sound effects or wipes from things to make transitions. There's a lot of stuff, but again, that spices things up. Another thing that goes with all these pieces is you as a vlogging host. You kind of have to, as you're vlogging, remember that, vlogs, you're trying to depict this authenticity, this kind of rawness to life. And so all this to say, as a host, you also want to try to strive for that authentic realness, transparency with your audience. Like when you're on camera and you're doing a vlog, it's like you do need to bring more energy, so to speak, like because you're kind of the host, you're a character in the story, but you also need to be able to like guide your audience, your viewers, into what is going on. And a lot of that can be done visually with the shots you have and the sequences and stuff, but a lot of it too will fall on your shoulders as the narrator, so to speak, to talk to the audience, to tell them what's going on, to even inform them why they should care sometimes. And so for me, the vlog, I felt like it was a good balance. It's like I felt like I was myself, but with some heightened energy to really bring people along. I was excited about doing the vlog, so then when I would interact with people, there would kind of be that natural transference of energy, and people were like, oh, this is a cool thing that he's doing. And it very much felt like me, it's like along with how I shot it and did stuff, all the questions I was asking people, all of it felt like me. And so that's a huge thing to keep in mind. You want it to feel like you. You don't want to copy the vlogger that you've watched all their vlogs, or this vlogger who she's super popular. You don't want to do that. You obviously can be inspired, you can learn things from how they vlog, but when it comes down to it, you want your vlogs to feel like you, because that's why people are going to come back. They're going to come back for you, the narrator, the host, the vlogger. You are the connective tissue that really holds everything together. And that's why people are going to be like, man, I want to go see Corey's vlogs because he does this thing, or he has got this unique perspective. And the other stuff on top of it, it's like the producedness, like that will kind of vary from person to person, but you are the reason people are gonna want to watch this vlog. Just have fun when you vlog. I think that's a big thing. Like, people watch vlogs in some ways just to come on an adventure with someone, you know, whether it's an adventure of, yeah, I'm gonna bake this new thing in my kitchen, or I'm gonna go watch this band play a concert and get to learn a little bit more about who they are, why they do this. People want an adventure when they come on a vlog. They want that authentic, relatable, personable adventure. So I hope something in this was helpful to you and just my creative process of how I put together a vlog, and some of that can translate back to you as you're thinking about putting your vlogs together. Like I said, the most important thing is, like, what is the story that you're telling and what is the story within the story? I think those are the key pieces. There's a lot of ways creatively, like I mentioned, that you can put that together, like kind of just put icing on top of the cake, but you want the cake to be solid. So it needs to have the right ingredients, or it's not going to be a cake. So I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Reel Filmmaking for more content about cameras, filmmaking, creative process coming at you. And until next time, keep making movies and watching movies. And I'll see you on Reel Filmmaking.